Welcome to Beyond Rockets. Hope you're having a great day. My name is Clark Dunn and I'm your host. Get ready to enjoy some awesome conversations from Huntsville locals about cool work they are doing right here in the Rocket City. You can connect with us on social media at Beyond Rockets, and if you're interested in doing a podcast yourself, I'd love to hear from you. You can visit my website, beyondrockets.com today, or connect to me on LinkedIn at Clark Dunn. Sit back and enjoy this episode of Beyond Rockets. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I feel like this has been a long overdue. I'm excited to have you here. To get us started, would you like to introduce yourself? And we'll
Sure.
begin there.
Sure. Well, I'm Joanna White. I'm the managing director of a nonprofit called the Apollo Coalition. Our mission is to build culture or build community through culture and innovation. And that means I get to do a lot of really cool things in our city.
Yeah, and you've been involved in a lot of cool things over your career here in the city.
That's right.
Huntsville native, which is far and few between sometimes in conversations. So it's exciting to have you here. I think to kind of get us started, your first sort of talk a little bit about growing up actually here in Huntsville, because it's one of those things I feel like probably when you're growing up, everyone's talking about all the things they could do in other cities, the things that were happening maybe in Nashville or in Birmingham or in Atlanta. And you kind of planted roots here and said, hey, Huntsville's cool. Huntsville's going to be fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's happening or going to happen here, maybe before it was even really happening.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about that dynamic of saying, hey, Huntsville's where I'm going to plant roots. And what was it like growing up here?
It's a great question. Nobody ever asked me that. So surprisingly, I was, 5, 6 when they were building 565 through our neighborhood. And we just moved into the city from the county. And when I think back to that, I'm like, wow, I can physically remember this being dirt and bulldozers, which is kind of crazy to think about. And the catalyst that was for growth, and also what it did to kind of, build a wedge right there. And now we have to update that. It's fascinating to think about. That's not the question you asked me, though. So, yes, growing up here was really interesting. We were part of kind of the homeschool revolution. So I was homeschooled all through school. And in high school, because of that, I had so many connections. I went to prom at a bunch of different high schools. We were starting to get involved in local theater, which built out a crazy network. I was very involved in my church, which was a big network. And honestly, some of the connections that I leverage now professionally and personally are connections I made in high school,
Wow.
which is interesting.
And it's probably interesting too to think that those people that maybe have those connections are also still here.
Yeah, they're either still here or I'm like, hey, I know you're in
Yeah,
Birmingham.
or
I know you're in
adjacent to
Atlanta.
us enough
Yes,
to be like, hey,
exactly.
can I use that network that you have? But to also think about that the potential of all of those people to still be that close or within the city still. Y'all would have probably never even thought about that. Like
That's right.
it would have been, oh, for sure somewhere else.
Yes, and as someone who grew up pretty involved in the community, I wanted to stay involved in the community. My personal mission since I was young was to be some kind of elected official, whether it was mayor, president, a congressperson, whatever. Now I've realized that you can have just as much influence behind the scenes, and so I've enjoyed having that kind of big fish in a small pond mentality since I was in high school. I went straight to work, and part of that was because I had discovered the local music scene. So I had made friends who were like, "Hey, there's a band playing in this basement at Low Mill or the lower floor of Low Mill." Wasn't a thing then. Low Mill was just a big building that we got kicked out of all the time. The coolest thing to me is that my friends played shows at Merrimack all the time, and now I'm there almost every day
Wow.
because Fantasy Playhouse Children's Theater, where I spend most of my volunteer time, purchased the building last year, and we've renovated and moved in, and we're having, just smashing success in our own space, in a space that I used to have shows where the cops would come kick us out of the building because we had too many people or whatever. So yeah, back then the music scene in Huntsville was a little more underground, but it was flourishing. There were all kinds of bands, all kinds of shows you could go to. Everything from like Christian rock to singer-songwriter shows. Microwave Dave, of course, had his open mic blues jam
Mm.
at the Coffee Clutch every Sunday night. So the music scene is what kind of inspired me to build a community or become a community builder, I
Mm,
guess. And a lot of those connections are people that I still work with and see all the time, and we're working on really cool projects. And because of that love for local music, I think that's part of what kept me in Huntsville.
mm,
I didn't go to college right after high school, didn't really have the resources to do that. Honestly, I've always struggled with feeling like I was qualified to, even though I'm super smart and I absolutely slayed high school. But when you get out in the world, you're like, oh, maybe I can't do that,
mm,
and so I just didn't, and I
mm,
stayed here and got to work.
yeah.
Um,
And I mean,
and
in 2005, you kind of had that big I mean, it was kind of like your career kind of I mean, you joined Art Huntsville
yeah, yep,
and you had 10-year career kind of there,
yes,
which is I mean, that is you had your hand in such a wide assortment of things. I
yes,
mean, it was just like one big cookie jar and you just got to choose
th-
every day what
that's
you
right.
wanted to do, who you wanted to be a part of what you were trying to accomplish, and you were a part of a lot of crazy and cool events. Talk about that experience, because I mean, that I think is sort of that pivotal moment you can probably even look back on yourself and think, "Okay, like, that kind of kick-started a lot of things."
Absolutely. Yeah, I had been a volunteer at Panoply in 2005. They had started a 10-minute play competition, and my friend Sam Marsh asked me to be in the 10-minute play that he was directing. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. And I also volunteered as an actor for fifth grade days. We had a group called Shakespearean Shorts that Jeff, who's my husband now, put together. And so, we were pretending to chop people's heads off in front of fifth graders. They loved it. It was a huge success. But the festival director at the time, his name was Rusty Wilkerson. He was hiring an assistant. And we had met because I worked at Theatrical Lighting Systems, which is where Panoply rented all their lighting
Mm.
staging gear. And so Rusty was like, hey, are you looking for a job? Because I'm hiring. So I applied. I wasn't sure I would get it. I knew I wanted to get out of TLS. It wasn't a good fit for me at the time. And I knew I wanted to be in something that was way more like community minded. I was honestly thinking about trying to get a job at a church or with a school, and, this job at Arts Huntsville popped up, and so I got the job, and let me tell you, back then, I think I was making, like, $21,000 a year
Yeah.
full time, which is crazy to think about,
And the
but
team was probably pretty like, it wasn't really it's not
yes.
what it is today.
No, no, no. I mean, it was, but it was structured so differently, that we were just doing
Mm,
events, even though there was so much else going on at Arts Huntsville. So big change came in 2009 when Allison came, Allison Dillon Jochen, who should definitely be on your
mm.
show if she hasn't
Yeah.
been. She's the executive director at Arts Huntsville, and so she came to us from Nashville Children's Theater. Thankfully, she was marrying an engineer and moving to Huntsville, and, she was the change maker. She came in and restructured the organization. She right-sized Panoply, and she helped us think beyond just these events and the artist organization services that we did. And so now Arts Huntsville is a robust, vibrant
Mm,
organization that's really serving as that kind of umbrella for all the arts in our community. And they've done such a great job of reaching out to artist communities that we weren't reaching out to before that needed to be included in the work. And so they've launched really great creative arts education programming that fits within our state standards for physical education. It's really hard to get the arts like
mm.
wedged in every public school,
Yeah.
but they've done a beautiful job of matching up theater and dance with PE standards, and that means that kids are getting exposed to things they may not have, got to try otherwise. Dance is not a really popular thing in 2nd grade for boys, for
Mm,
instance, but they get to do it in school through Arts Huntsville's programming. So that was a really fun, change to be a part of, and, I was kind of over planning and production for about half of the festival for about 7 years. So I did things like the plumbing, the electricity, renting the tents, managing all the logistics, booking all the bands, and managing the art marketplace, which, has about 100 visual artists from all over the United States. And that was really
mm.
challenging and fun. And I always say now, if you could run any part of Panoply, you can do anything because you're managing so many details while also keeping the big picture of what
Mhm.
Panoply is in mind. And I love the way that Arts Huntsville's adapted to the new construction downtown and the growth downtown. Some cities would have been like, "No, we gotta keep that empty parking
Yeah.
lot so we can do this one event every year or maybe 2 events
Mm.
every year." Instead, Arts Huntsville and the VBC have really seen, the growth around them happen and embraced it instead of being resistant to
Yeah.
it. And I think, Mayor Battle always says, "If we're not growing, we're dying." And I
Mhm.
think that, watching Arts Huntsville kind of manage that growth has been really motivating and inspiring and fun to be a part of. The coolest thing about what the board did at Arts Huntsville as Allison came is everybody really teamed up to diversify what Arts Huntsville was working on. And so being the subject matter experts for public art
Mhm.
in our community and being a part of that when it was just burgeoning, it was really fun and challenging. I like to say that even though I didn't go to school back then, I was really good at the school of Google. And, so much of what we do as a creative community is, the underpinnings are probably there already.
Mm.
Somebody else in another community has probably tried it. And the neatest thing about creatives is that they're really excited to share their work and how they've done something. In general, creatives aren't territorial. So you
Mm.
could go to another community and ask, well, how'd you do this
Or like,
sculpture
why did you do
trail?
it that
Or
way?
why'd you do it that way?
Yeah.
And so watching Allison collaborate and build that kind of network where he didn't really have it before, I learned a lot from that. And now as I'm trying to build something so new, it's been cool to reach out to my friends in Birmingham and Nashville and even way beyond that and just ask, "How'd you do this?"
Yeah.
and learn from that. We even have partners like Shane Shapiro and Sound Diplomacy and the Center for Music Ecosystems. These places are resources that we leverage all the
Mhm.
time, and, Nadia and I from the RCP team, we got to go out to LA to a real estate conference that was centered around music, and it was a really select group of 200 people, and man, those connections, because again, those are people who are like, "Well, I did it in Houston, I know you can do it in Huntsville," and
Mhm.
that's what's so exciting is to be a part of a community like Huntsville. We're not we're willing to try new things. We've kind of broken out of our mentality that failure is not an option, and we seem to be like, "No, the sky's not the limit," you
Yeah,
know?
and I think, there's a book that I often recommend on podcasts, it's Steal Like an Artist.
Yes.
He has 3 different ones, like Show Your Work, Steal Like an Artist, and a third one. But it's the whole idea, it's like the wheel's been invented.
Yeah,
It's,
that's right.
we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, we're just trying to figure out how it works best for us.
Yes.
And it's like our community is different than Houston, our community is different than Birmingham or
Yeah.
Nashville or Chattanooga or Atlanta or fill in the blank with whatever city you want at any state you want. But it is one of those things. It's like, the way they approach things, the way they look at things. I think it's the whole point of the podcast.
Yeah.
It's that, I necessarily don't want to, if I had a boutique I don't want to own a boutique. That's just not me. But the way they look at business, might be,
That's right.
I might be able to look at that and go like, hey, that might work for me. And same thing with like with what you do. It's like you do so many different things. It's like, okay, how do you, how do you look at this or how do you look at that? And I think what's funny is you mentioned, to begin with, that you've always wanted to be in that, maybe be mayor, run for office, and you kind of had that sort of touch and that ability to do that when you became the campaign manager and kind of doing stuff for Mayor Battle,
Yeah.
for I think 5 campaigns, which is crazy. I had the privilege to have Mayor Battle on the
It's a
podcast a
great
couple,
podcast.
which was
Great
so much fun,
episode.
so much fun. And so, talk a little bit about kind of that transition because that was
Sure.
kind of post Arts Huntsville
Yeah.
and then freelance kind of journey for Joanna
Yeah.
prior to now what you do with RCP, which we'll get into next.
Okay.
Talk a little bit about, getting involved with Mayor Battle and, kind of itching that creative, that dream that you had when you were 11.
Well, I would love for people to realize that when you do Panoply or when we host big sporting events, these are things that you have to do with city
Mm.
agencies. They're big partnerships. So Panoply can't happen without the partnership of so many people at the city. And so I kind of, I think, had established myself with Mayor Battle then as like a dependable, fun person to be around. And as I left Arts Huntsville in 2015, through a random other connection, I got involved with Mayor Battle's campaign. I'd always been supportive because, when he ran for office in 2008, he seemed like somebody who was gonna, like, put money where his talk was.
Mm,
So, he immediately started doing things to benefit the arts community that had always just been talked about.
mm,
Um, within a few months of him taking office, he figured out how to do free parking for volunteers who were doing arts programming at the VBC.
mm.
That's a big deal, if you're volunteering and you're gonna be in a show at the VBC, then you're spending, like, 2 weeks straight at that
Yeah.
place, which is so great. We love the Playhouse, which is where we make a lot of theater at the VBC. But, back then you were paying $5 a day to do that. Well, that doesn't seem like a lot, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
And the
It adds up,
city,
especially
it
over the
adds
course
up.
of the prep to the actual show to the
That's right.
everything in between.
That's right. And so, he got together a good working group and we figured out a process to do like a free parking pass for volunteers. And now it's a pretty good hit to the parking bottom line, but they still do it, and
Mm,
they allowed us to they saw the value in the volunteer work, which I think is really, really important, that the community understands how valuable our volunteers are,
Mm,
and that so many of what people love in Huntsville happens because of volunteers. And even something like, Broadway Theater League, when they're bringing in Broadway shows, your experience is heightened and is enhanced by volunteer
mm,
ushers who make sure you get to your seat, make sure you know how to get out if there's an emergency. Like those things, everything we do here is supported by volunteerism, which I think is so cool. It's a big part of the fabric of our community. And so I loved that he saw the value, and immediately the arts community was like, whoa, this mayor means business.
mm,
Well, then down the road, and working at Arts Huntsville, we got to develop the city's grant program for arts organizations, which has had a huge impact. Arts organizations do a lot with a little. And so being able to enhance their work through the grant program is another thing that the Mayor Battle brought to the table. And then, of course, now with our music
I
initiatives.
mean,
Yes.
it's often the craziest thing when I see things with music or what's happening in music here and thinking, "Oh, like, that's definitely not Huntsville," and then now having to, like, reprogram yourself over the last year or 2
Yes.
to go, "No, no, no,
Oh, yeah.
it is Huntsville." Like,
Definitely.
that's not some other venue that I happen to follow somewhere else. Like,
That's
that's
right.
something that's happening down the street in my
Yeah.
backyard,
Yeah.
in a neighborhood that, I grew up in or someone else grew like, that's just a wild thing to even think about,
Yeah.
and it's like you mentioned, it's that the seeds have been planted for such a long period of time that
Yes.
now we're seeing the crop,
That's right.
and, like,
Exactly.
that's the really exciting thing is
Yeah.
that, people that are coming to Huntsville today, people that have come to Huntsville in the last year.
We have people moving here just to make music.
Yeah, and,
It's
that's such
insane.
a crazy thing, it's like
Yeah.
they just know it of today, it's like, "No, no, no, this is not something we've always had,"
That's
like,
right.
and this
That's
is
right.
something that's just now shown up in the last couple years,
Yeah.
which is amazing, and it feels like it's been here forever,
Yes.
and it kind of has in, different ways, there's
Yes.
different communities and pockets of entertainment and music and stuff like that that's been here, but now it's really flourishing.
Yeah, we're just amplifying so much
Yeah,
of what's already happening, and then, of course, under Matt Mandrell and his leadership in the music board, getting organized about
yeah.
how we talk about these things and doing some great programming. But, so yeah, I got drafted into Tommy's campaign in 2015, and I really was just like an event planner that first
Mhm.
campaign. I got much more involved toward the end of the campaign in like the daily grind. But early on, mayor's goal was to do, I think, 50 community events. And this was where we would go into neighborhoods or have a presence at events that were already happening. Some of them were, they're having a fair in Northwoods and we're going to go serve hot dogs all day. And other events where, Clark's going to host us at his house and he's going to invite 25 of his neighbors, and we're
Mm,
gonna have a conversation. And so I managed all of that and, then started to learn about the strategy behind all of it.
mm.
And we had what we called Battle Bible, which is where all of that lived. And so I learned, from Mayor and from, his kitchen cabinet of these
Mm.
guys and women who have been in local politics for a really long time. And recently, when we get together for things, I'm like, man, I really got to start recording these conversations so somebody can write a book because these
yeah,
guys have great stories about what it's like to be in Alabama
yeah.
politics. So worked in 2015. Of course, he was reelected with like almost 83% of the vote in 2016. And then, within 6 months, he was talking about running for governor. and got to work on the campaign for governor, which was so inspiring and fulfilling, because I love Alabama. I love the South. I'm that keyboard warrior who, like, gets mad when people who've never been here will post on Threads
Yeah, and
something.
you're like, "You don't understand."
Oh, I'm like, you've probably never even been here before, you know? Especially Huntsville. I think when I was young, when we were talking early in my career, it was like, you should move to Huntsville because you can afford to live here and travel outside of the city every weekend for
Mm.
something to do. We would never say that now, but
No.
back in the day, it was Huntsville, Alabama. Don't judge us by our last name. And you can drive to Nashville,
And we're
New
close
Orleans,
to.
Memphis. Yeah, and so I'm glad that we don't promote the city like that anymore,
Yeah.
but it is an indicator of, like, where we were and where we are now,
Mm.
where I think, we don't have to leave on the weekends to
No.
find something cool to do, and so, worked on the 2018 campaign for governor, which was really, really exciting and fun, but I'm really glad that mayor was our mayor through COVID,
Mhm.
and I can't imagine what it would have been like if he hadn't been our mayor through COVID, and that was a really tough year. He was reelected that year, and it was really fun to work on that campaign. Fun and really painful, and gave me all these gray hairs because we did so many Zooms. I mean,
I mean.
it is still hard for me to agree to a Zoom because we had so many neighborhood events planned and we pivoted to Zoom, and you jump on Zoom with, like, 30 people from Hampton Cove, and mayor would give his spiel and they would ask questions, and it was a whole thing, and then we'd get off and we'd have a 10-minute break and then we'd jump on another Zoom with a whole bunch of people from, the Zert Road area or whatever. So it was really an interesting adventure. I've never done anything like that in my career, and I hope I never do again
Yeah.
because it was just, it was a really stressful but also crazy exciting
Yeah.
time. And being able to have a watch from behind the scenes as to everything that mayor and our incredible city department heads were managing, our incredible school system and how they were managing things through that. I'm really glad that I have the privilege of kind of having that viewpoint.
Mm.
It helps me keep everything in perspective. And also at the root of all of it, everybody's just a human being doing their best.
Yeah.
And so I always encourage people to kind of get to know their local representatives in whatever way they can because it does give you that perspective of like, oh, there's still humanity here,
Mhm.
even though on the national scene, politics feels just really unstable.
Mm.
Locally, we're just so blessed to have incredible local government up here in North Alabama. And then our state reps to Montgomery are just phenomenal people who really care deeply about the state of our state
Mm.
and how it benefits, helps, or holds back people from, all different kinds of backgrounds. So I love working with our local delegation in my job now as I'm building new things in
Mhm.
Mid City, and building this community of innovators, or not even building it, but enhancing what's already here, hopefully amplifying the work that other people have been doing for a long time. But working for mayor definitely gave me a perspective that helps me put myself in other people's shoes. It helps me delegate because he's really good at delegating. And it also, just helped me kind of build this network of people across the community and make friends in neighborhoods I might not have otherwise ever visited.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna switch camera, do a new recording, so you're gonna take a water break, and then we'll, yeah.
Perfect. Oh, wow, we're already half an hour in.
Yeah, I knew we were about 24 minutes in, so stop it, and then we'll start back. Uh, I have a question about that follow-up. We'll go.
Okay, perfect. Oh, my allergies. I'm proud of myself for not coughing much today. The pollen is killing me.
Okay. So, working 5 campaigns for Mayor Battle, think taking me back to maybe the things that you learned in that first campaign and kind
Mhm.
of that transition into him potentially running for governor at that time and doing all of that versus maybe the things you have to think about on that the 5th campaign, the most recent one, and kind of your not only 'cause I mean, that you were a part of seeing his journey and seeing the cabinet's
Yeah,
journey, but also the question more specifically to you personally and your
sure,
journey.
sure.
What was something that you maybe you took away in that last campaign kinda transitioning now into your role with RCP?
Oh, wow. Great question, Clark. Um, so in the first campaign in 2015, I was a lot younger. And so, I think that I've grown into a phase now of where I'm like, no, I know what I'm doing. I have a little more confidence. That first campaign, I would often kind of second guess what I was doing. But campaigns are a lot like event planning or running a nonprofit. I mean, you do volunteer management, you have a lot of marketing, and you think about how you're telling your story. Fundraising is the biggest thing you do, and event planning, it all, like, wraps into one thing. And so, of course, it's very different because you're representing a person and that person's ideas about how to run in that office. And so, in the first campaign, I was really learning, how, to do things, professionally and excellently, and I like to finish what I start, and so, building systems behind how we run our email
Mm,
newsletter or how these events run out or the battle Bible, those things were all, things I was learning to do this last campaign in 2024, which I think I'm on 4 campaigns, 2016, 2020, the gubernatorial, and 2024. Yeah,
okay.
I think that's right. Um, and so this last campaign, I had all those systems in place. And then I have the question of like, am I doing enough? And I'm like, yeah, I just have systems now and they work. There's also, you're getting to know how Mayor Battle likes things done. And
Mm,
so I know his event sensibilities now, the kind of food he wants, the people he wants around the table. And typically I can kind of push back a little and say, let's get these people in the room
mm,
too. And he loves that. It's one of the reasons that we make great partners. Um, so hopefully I've developed those systems now to the point where we can try new and innovative things. That's why 2020 was such a fun challenge because we started texting. We had done some texting in the gubernatorial campaign, but in 2020 we relied a lot on texting, and we had a really great guy who helped us stand that up for the campaign. And now I have a whole system built. I can literally go in
wow.
and just update what we did before if I ever wanted to do texting again. Now, 2024 was a whole nother thing because Mayor Battle has been running for office since his college days in the '70s, and he's never been unopposed.
Mm,
So in 2024, to be unopposed and kind of, expect that we were gonna be unopposed, we kept expecting somebody to come out of the woodwork, and nobody did. And so when qualifying was over and he was the only name on the ballot, they reelected him at a city council meeting because that's state law.
mm,
And so not having a real campaign, was so weird. It's like you worked on something for months and then it was just over. And I won't speak for Mayor Battle, but I know that I was disappointed to not have the chance to get back in the neighborhoods because
mm,
he really seems to enjoy that. I know I enjoy it. It helps us see what issues have cropped up maybe since the last campaign. And he was ready to do that even though, we weren't, gonna have any opposition. He was like, "I still want to campaign," and we didn't get to, so, he does that in lots of ways while he's mayor. He relies on, the Office of Multicultural Affairs and all these great task forces and councils that they've built, like the AI task force, Cyber
mm,
Huntsville, these groups to kind of show him what's happening and then things that we can do as a city to enhance those industries and areas. So I really enjoyed working for him. I think personally, I've realized that you can make such a difference by just like being dependable and doing what you say you're going to
mm,
do. And then thinking about how you bring other people in and get to be a part of what you're working on. That's one of the culture changers that I think that mayor has brought to City Hall, but he's also brought it to, groups like the ones that I'm involved with, arts groups, church groups, where people feel welcome at City Hall and they feel like they belong and have some ownership in what's happening in the city. Now, obviously, I have a biased view. Just because I'm biased doesn't mean I'm wrong,
yeah.
though. But I do think we have a community that's very open and you have access to our leaders, which is very different than other cities or
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, I mean, I think, your career, Arts Huntsville, Mayor Battle, freelancing with RCP prior to now your role with
Yeah,
RCP. So your role with RCP, you're the executive director of the Apollo Coalition.
yeah.
Um, but in the Apollo Coalition was launched in 2021
Yes,
as Mid-City Accelerator,
that's right.
and then kind of had its kind of rebranding, shortly right before you started or right when you
Yeah,
started,
yeah, yeah.
to kind of, because I think when we first interviewed, we talked about it at the beginning of the podcast. I first interviewed you for Mid-City 6 weeks on the job, 2
Yeah,
days on the job. I
yeah.
mean, 6 I think it was 6 days. I think you had been there,
It's
like
like my
it was
second
like
week.
yeah, it was like you had just started.
Yes.
So now you've kind of been in that role. For those that maybe don't know what the Apollo Coalition is, kind of the vision, the mission, what are some of the events and things that y'all specifically integrated into within Mid-City and within North Alabama and within Huntsville as a whole that maybe people know of, but maybe don't know kind of what your role is in that?
Sure. So, when it comes to events, the Apollo Coalition partners with MCA, Mid City Association, and then we do some things at the camp as well to do our big community building events. So that's the farmers market, the market of Mid City every Sunday from March through November, which is really fun. Camped Amp, which is coming up on May 16th, and that's our big festival just showcasing the community. We have all kinds of vendors, nonprofits, and then a stage of local artists all that day, and it literally goes from the camp to the Orion. And then I do our Mid-City Independence Day celebration, which is our big 4th of July fireworks spectacular, and last year, we added, like, a mini festival, so we have a couple of bands, we do some military appreciation that day, we have a patriotic glow party and some fun things now that Apollo Park is open. We have a beautiful city park at Mid-City that we can leverage for things like that. And then, of course, the Whistle Stop Barbecue Festival. I also do, Live Nights, which is our partnership with the Huntsville Music Office and, East Iris Studios in Nashville. So we have a music exchange program with them where we take Huntsville artists up and showcase them to the Nashville music community. We bring Nashville artists down here to Huntsville to the camp, and that's been really fun. It's a great partnership, and we're actually working on all kinds of things with the group from East Iris Studios and Universal Music. But the live nights are my favorite
Yeah, I
because
mean,
we get to do some artist showcasing, which is really fun. And then, of course, the heart of what we do at the Apollo Coalition is support the generator programs in Huntsville. So that's G Beta and Spark. G Beta is a pre-investment accelerator for people with great ideas. Spark is finding the best and brightest early ideas and helping them build to a viable product. And we have great partners with Generator that do that. Rochelle, Nathan, and Tati, they're fantastic. And so my goal is to support them, do as much storytelling and networking as I can to support that. Our accelerators, and that's not the Apollo Coalition was initially stood up to get those accelerators started, and then our board at the coalition wanted to make something more out of the nonprofit
Mm.
and give it a real role at Mid City and in North Alabama. So that's when they asked me to come on
Yeah.
board, and it's been really fun. Probably my dream job, if I had to be honest. I've applied for some cool jobs in Knightsville. I didn't get those jobs,
Yeah.
but this one,
It's kinda like a mix
been
of
a great
everything that
fit.
you've done, really,
Exactly.
because it's the arts that you love.
Yes.
It's in a vibrant community that is ever growing. It
Yes.
is, I mean, I think we're maybe even not even halfway into building of the process,
That's right.
40% of the
We're
way in.
40%. Yeah.
Monrovia is getting their huge development happening
Yes. Yeah.
soon. There's I mean, there's so much happening at Mid-City, and you're able to, work with your connections through other means,
Yeah.
and then also be able to say, like, "Hey, here's this place and space for you to create, be creative, think outside of the box," and, there's no really wrong answer.
Yeah.
It's just like, "Be you,
That's right.
and here's the space to do it."
That's right. And now we've grown our programs to the point that it's time for a building. So working on putting a flag in the ground for innovation in our community, a place that is that third space for builders,
Mm.
founders, innovators, artists, and working on getting that funded and built now, which is really exciting and really hard. So if anybody would like to write a check,
Yeah.
just call
Yeah,
me. I would love
please.
that. I'll
Yeah,
put your name on the
links
building.
links
Yeah.
below, links will pop up on the screen.
Yes, but that's the AIM campus, Arts
Yeah.
and Innovation at Mid-City. It's on the south end of the district, down near the Orion, which is perfect fit. There's literally nothing like the Orion in the world. I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of TVG and what they've brought to our community. I'm so thankful to have partners like that who kind of have a global view of music while we're all working here, boots on the ground, and such a great partnership. And there's more to come with all of that. So that's been exciting too. But the campus especially, I just keep thinking of like, you know, what do you do after you leave your job on the Arsenal? Where do you go to create in that like open source
Mhm.
collaborative way? Obviously, that happens behind closed doors all the time because we're like one of the most innovative communities in the world, in my opinion. Obviously, again, I'm biased,
Doesn't mean you're
but
wrong.
that's right. But, you know, where do you go when you want when you're building something and you're running into a problem that you can't solve? Maybe there's somebody else that has the
Mm.
solution. And so Max, you know, at RCP, who's the chair of my board for the Apollo Coalition, we were dreaming one day and he said, "You know, we're really creating ecosystems for human collaboration." I was like, "Max,
Write that down.
write it down." It's so good. And so and it's not just like what we say we're doing, we're actually trying to do that, and that means you build spaces for that, but it also means you just support stuff that's already
Yeah.
happening and give people a home,
Yeah, amplify it. Because I mean,
and amplify it.
like
Yeah.
we were talking about, like, the music scene has been here in Huntsville, the tech, the startups, the entrepreneurship, the
Yeah,
creativity.
it's always been here.
It's been here. It's
Yeah,
just now has a stage to kind of perform on,
that's right.
which is really cool. And I think on y'all's website, there's a couple things I wrote down that I just want to reiterate as far as like such a cool approach to what y'all are doing from the mission, building community through culture and innovation. I
Yeah,
mean, that's just incredible. Vision is a vibrant community, and this is something that I think was really interesting. Being the connective tissue of our city,
yeah, that's right.
and I think that is such a um, cool approach to it. And I think it all ties back to, this being your perfect role. Your LinkedIn bio, which is a huge um, connection between everything that you've done,
Yeah.
everything you're continuing to do, and everything you're going to do, which is creating space for human connection and collaboration in North Alabama.
Yeah, yeah.
It's simple, it's easy, but it's often easier said than done.
And it also applies to, like, everything.
Everything,
Yeah,
everything. And I think that is, it's the underlying thread of everything that you've done, and it's all cultivating to what you're doing now. So it's really interesting just to kind of see kind of those puzzle pieces all kind of align now. Like
sure.
you've done this, you've done this, you've done a little bit of this, you've done all sorts of other things, and they all kind of then, unbeknownst to you, is kind of exactly what RCP and Coalition and the Apollo Coalition is.
Right.
And you're able to kind of do this on like a kind of a new stage. Um,
I do wanna say, though, that, I am a deep extrovert.
Mm.
So, none of this has happened by myself, you know? And I think that's what's so cool about working for people like Mayor Battle, Max Grillier, Allison Dillon Jochen, Melissa Thompson at the Community Foundation. These are all people who really love building great teams. And if you don't have an incredible team where everybody's, you know, like I know my job is to be the connection, the connective
Mm.
tissue, but without other really great people working in the space, that wouldn't happen. And I think, you know, when you look at everything happening from launch and Jim Page to what Ashley Ingalls Ross does at the chamber to people like Peggy Lee Wright and Lynn Troy. I mean, we have incredible people that are doing really cool things in our community and they're leveraging their own skill set to build something really special
Mm.
that's like we do a lot of things here that aren't anywhere else in the world, and we just
Mhm.
gotta tell those stories now, and sometimes I see that as my role, sometimes I see my role as just, "Hey, Clark, have you ever met this person? Y'all should meet."
100%.
Sometimes it's, you know, actually planning a massive event
Mm. Yeah, I mean,
with a great team, but all this happens because we live in a community where people are willing to work together.
I think, the best connectors and the best amplifiers of people, you have to balance that sort of give and take of like, there's things in which you do very well, and there's things in which other people are doing very
Oh,
well.
yeah.
And it's like knowing these other people that are doing amazing things allows you to do the things that you do amazing well even better.
That's right, yeah.
And like that's just the key to this. It's like
Yes.
there's so many cool people, and a lot of those people we've had the privilege to talk to, and there's plenty of people that, I think it is just about, like, being able to open that door and say, like, "Hey,
Yeah,
you should know this person, or you should
right.
get to know this person, or this is happening in your community. Did you know about this?"
Yeah.
And I think that's such a cool thing. Um, I mean, I don't as we kind of wrap up this conversation, it is such a interesting thing to me how as you look back on your journey from, Huntsville native to roll with the arts Huntsville to Mayor Battle to freelance to RCP as we sit in May of 2026, which is crazy to think about. What would be kind of that piece of advice or somebody that's listening to this that's maybe in your shoes 6 steps ago, 6 steps behind you?
Yeah.
You know, they're just getting started in the community. They're trying to find their role, kind of how
Mhm.
you found yours.
Mhm.
What would be your advice to them to find their role and kind of find where they see best fit?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I decided what my personal mission was pretty early, which was like, how could if I'm gonna stay in Huntsville, then it has to be the coolest place. So, how can I make it as cool as possible? Um, I think that that's a big part of it. Is like, what's your personal mission? Is your personal mission to support teachers? Then figure out how to get
Mhm.
involved with free to teach.
Allison
Yeah,
Kling, amazing.
yeah, is your personal mission, to support our libraries? Well, there's lots of ways to do that. So, like, what's your personal mission? Is it as broad as mine? Is it more specific? And your personal mission could be totally like for personal gain. That's fine, but decide what that mission is. Um, if you really want to make an impact, this community is so open to people who are willing to do the work. So just find a way to volunteer and then actually do it. I think um, we have so many opportunities for board service. We have so many opportunities for people to just dig in and do really good work. And so my advice is always to volunteer to find your passion that way. That's what I did. That's how I built my network. It started in church and went into theater and music. And I still do it to this day. So I think if you could be part of that 20% that does 80% of the work, then go do that, volunteer and dig in. And I think, I mean, I've had a couple of relationships that I probably can't rely on now, but for the most part, I try not to burn my bridges.
Mm.
So you build a bridge, with someone and you may not keep that bridge up for a really long time. It may not be as like fresh as it once was, but there are people that I know that I haven't reached out to or had a really strong connection with in years that I know I could call today and be like, "Hey, do you wanna work on something together?" And they'd be like, "Absolutely." So, if you work hard to, keep those relationships intact, and when you walk away from something, do it in a way that builds a bridge instead of burns it, I think that's really important. And in our community, you can see that. You can see where people have kept up these networks and kept building them, and they've led to something really great. So, decide your personal mission, volunteer as much as you can. Um, just say yes to things
Mhm.
and to keep those relationships intact. I think that's the advice I would try to give. Um, but most of all, it's just do what you say you're gonna do, and I don't always succeed at that. In fact, I fail at it probably half the time, but, that's because I say yes to too many things
Yeah. I
sometimes.
mean, I think too, I mean,
Yeah.
you found and I think this is the key. I heard it we had a podcast a couple episodes ago, the guy mentioned it, um, but it's finding, what you're passionate about, and I think oftentimes people think that your passion can't be a job or career, and there's definitely something out there that can marry the 2.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough that I found it for
Right.
myself, and I think you're fortunate enough that you found it for
Yeah.
yourself. And I think if you're gonna do that job and you're gonna spend your time and you're gonna invest your energy into something like this, like a career and a job is a lot of your time and energy.
Yeah.
You might as well really, really love what you do.
That's right.
Like, it could be a lot worse if you didn't like it.
Yes.
Like, if you were just doing it for the check or whatever it might be, like,
Yeah.
it could be a lot worse. Um, if you were to think about a place or an event or a venue or a thing that's been in Huntsville, and I have a couple in my head that you enjoyed going to from, like, music perspective or from an event perspective or an old restaurant or bar, a place that was in Huntsville that you wish would revamp like Tip Top has, what would that be?
Oh gosh, yeah, I would have said Tip Top, and
Yeah.
now it's back, which is just incredible, and I'm there all the time, it's embarrassing. I loved Humphreys. I really
Mhm.
wanna that's, like,
Yeah.
the best patio.
Best patio.
So many good memories, and then, of course, Crossroads. I think a lot of people who talk about music talk
Mm.
about Crossroads. The first Crossroads was more like Tip Top, it was smaller. The Crossroads that I knew well was the one that was downtown on Clinton,
Mm.
and it felt like Huntsville really needs a venue that size.
Yeah.
We're building some cool stuff at
Yeah.
in
There's a
Mid-City.
lot of things are happening.
So I think we'll have a resurgence of those kinds of things. And I'm really not I mean, I'm very sentimental,
Mm.
okay? Like, a deeply sentimental person. Like, the only reason I have Facebook still is because of the memories
Mm.
feature. It's my favorite thing. It's what I look at in the mornings. And my friends know it because I'm like, "Look what happened 14 years ago," and they're like, "Don't remind me." Yeah. So I love those places, but I think that our community, the timing has to be right,
Mm,
and, something like like, the camp is the coolest place we've had in Huntsville, in
mhm,
my opinion, and I'm a native. It is just it's so cool. It's a place where you don't have to buy something to hang out, although we hope you do, but,
mhm.
um and I can't wait for people to experience the new camp.
Mm.
I think that's gonna be a legacy place that, like, 30 years from
We're
now.
talking about it of, like, "Do you remember when it first opened?"
Yes.
kinda thing, and I think
Yes.
that's the cool things is it's hard to envision the things in 10 or 15 years that we're gonna talk about like we do or
Yeah.
you would do with Tip Top
Yeah.
or Coffee Klotz Bar
Yeah.
or whatever it might be, like,
That's right.
there's places now that are gonna have that impact that you're gonna think about, "Oh, do you remember when we went to the first waltz?
Yeah.
Do you remember when we
That's right.
saw X band at the Orion? Do you
Yes.
remember when we" I mean, there's still, like,
Oh, I get chills
I
thinking
mean,
about the
I
Orion,
mean,
like,
I do
25 years from now.
I mean, it's just incredible, and I think,
It's
it's one of
incredible.
those things that we not necessarily take for granted now, but it's something that we just don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know yet what it's going to mean to us
Yeah.
in 10 years,
Yeah.
and I think that's also kinda the cool thing.
It is the cool
Like,
thing,
that's
and,
the
like,
thing
you could
that's
be
like
part of that.
yeah, it's like, you can like, that's the fun about it. Like, it's
Yes.
also like my, like, wife's, dad played in bands and uncle played in bands at Tip Top, and so, like, now it's reopened. It's like they remember it for when it was when they played there, and
Yeah.
now we get to go and see what it's like today
It's great.
and, like, hear their stories, but then also create our new stories,
Yeah.
and I think that's the greatest thing about Huntsville is that it does such a great job of preserving those incredible stories and those
Mhm.
incredible legacies of the past while also painting a picture for the future.
Right, and think about places like Low Mill, Campus 805, Merrimack, we do a great job saving our spaces. Stovehouse,
Mm.
reusing these spaces. I'm glad we didn't reuse the mall. I'm glad we turned it into Mid-City. But, we do a pretty good job of, like, these places that have really incredible stories. The stories behind Stovehouse, Merrimack,
Mm,
Campus 805 and the school, the breweries coming out of
mm.
there, like, I loved going to the original Straight to Ale, but look at it now,
Yeah.
And so I think as a community, we are doing that legacy building right now, on those legacies of those former places, and, I mean, Low Mill's legendary. That is a legendary place that we should all be going to all the time and supporting, because there's nothing like it
Mhm.
anywhere else. And so, what an incredible community to be in. I think, the name of your podcast is great, but gosh, thank goodness we have what we
Mhm.
have here when it comes to NASA and
Oh,
rockets
100%.
to launch everything that we've launched in our community.
Yeah, and so, kind of the final kinda question, obviously, this episode's gonna come out peak summer, which is a
Yeah.
lot of events taking place for the
Yes.
Apollo Coalition. What are some of those events taking place? You mentioned some of those earlier, but kind of getting us through that summer time frame, moving us into the start of a new school year in August and the fall. What are some things people can expect? Where can they find out more information about what you're doing? Where can businesses be involved, connect, support, be a connector with you and what you're trying to accomplish with the Apollo Coalition?
So this summer, obviously in the market every Sunday from noon to 4. We've moved down to Main Mid-City Drive down near Tupelo Honey and reaching to our new pavilion and where the camp will be eventually. And so come see it in its new location. Come shop. The summer it gets really hot, but that's watermelon season and all kinds of great produce, tomatoes. So the market always every Sunday, and I try to be there as much as I can. And we do some cool activations. We're working on that this year. So Father's Day will have special things happening at the market. 4th of July weekend, of course, is always big in Mid City. So we'll have fireworks that Saturday, and then our seed spitting contest and watermelon carving contest and stuff on Sunday at the camp and at the market. So come to those. As the school year starts, we'll do Whistle Stop, which is, a legacy event in
Mm.
Huntsville that was really found a new fun home at Mid City. Come eat barbecue. there's a people's choice situation, so you can eat free wings on Friday night and free, pulled pork all day on Saturday, and then vote on your favorites. That's part of your ticket price, which is, a new format, and that's worked really well the last couple of years in Mid-City. So come out for that, but, I'm most excited about getting this innovation hub built, the AIM campus. We're starting a lot of really great co-creator mixers, events for builders, developers, designers, to just collide and collaborate, and so watch for those coming out. The first one hopefully will be toward the end of June, happening in our office. We have a very cool office in Mid-City. It's beautiful. It's a fun place to hold events, and so we'll have some of those things launching. And then, of course, in the fall, if there's anybody out there who's starting who has an idea, for a business or a product or a service, um a tech idea, whatever you have, reach out to us because our team at Generator would love to help develop that into something real that could, it could be a world changing solution
Mm,
to a problem. You never know. So G Beta will happen again in the fall. And that's a really great program for people who have an idea and they're ready to make it into something real and impactful. So much going on.
mm,
There's always ways for businesses to support. We have really great partnerships with so many wonderful businesses, from Bank Independent to Buffalo Rock, to our supporters through the Innovate Alabama program, which are groups like Blue Cross Blue Shield and Robbins and Morton, and just some really great partners around our community. So I'm always looking for new partners and people who are interested in this work because it's definitely different than your
mm.
typical nonprofit. So to help us tell the story of what's happening in innovation in our community, and to help us build this ecosystem of creative problem solvers, I'm looking for partners all the time. So thank you, Clark, for being a partner by just
Of
having me
course.
on your
Of
podcast.
course. We'll be sure to have links to everything. I think the last little bit with the events should have popped up on the screen. So if you're not watching this, you should be watching this and you can see all the event stuff that we've just talked about. We'll have links to everything, links to Joanna, links to RCP, links to Apollo Coalition, everything that's happening at Mid City. We'll probably have to have you back on the podcast in like a year because I feel like
Yeah.
so much is happening in such a quick time frame that
Yes.
things are going to be evolving and changing
Yeah.
for the good. And I think it's incredible to be a part of that. It's incredible to see what you've been able to accomplish and what you've been able to have a role in with a bunch of awesome creative people too. It's not just a solo. There's no solo act in creating anything, and I think relying on other creative people and the connections that you've made is really what has gotten you to where you are. And I
Oh,
think it's
absolutely.
incredible to see. But I appreciate you taking the last, I don't know, hour maybe. I don't know. It's been great. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thanks, Clark. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Beyond Rockets. Don't forget you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen and on YouTube at Beyond Rockets. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Beyond Rockets to stay up to date with new episodes as they are released. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.